Okay, hey everybody. Let me make sure I don't want to get too much in front of my face. We are live with WeConnect podcast number 5 with Ravanona, CEO and founder of Global Investor. They are on a mission, well, Ravanona and Global Investor are on a mission to help to fund 1 million women all over the world by 2030. They want to help to get funding for women-founded and women-supporting companies and women who are entrepreneurs and investors, CEOs and founders. Definitely, if you haven't already checked out Global Investor, then please do check it out. Also, still offering an awesome Rise app, 30 days for free and 40% off on your annual membership. So, all right, Anne is coming in here. All right, just about ready. Hi, Anne, are you there?
Hi, Amy, I'm here. Can you see me and hear me okay?
I can hear you. I can't see you yet, but
there we are. Apologies, there I am.
Awesome. All right. Well, welcome, Anne. Thanks so much for joining us here on WeConnect. And we'll be getting started in just a moment, getting things set up here. We are on Facebook Live. Yeah, really exciting to have you here with us. And I'm so thrilled. I mean, can you believe it? I think that I joined Global Investor a year ago, maybe a little bit less than a year ago. And wow, it's just, I feel like I've grown so much because of women like yourself and other women who are part of Global Investor. And, I'm so grateful for that community of women. I remember it was really very funny how I found Global Investor. It was actually through AngelList, and somebody who was a programmer at Global Investor. It was actually a man who told me about you, and I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I know about this sooner? This is so amazing. I'm glad that I found your community, and I'm so glad that I found you, Anne, and it's just, like what you do, it's so amazing. Okay, so, and there's someone else, Chrissy, who's joining us. Is she part of is she somebody who you know?
Yes, Chrissy Boyaki, she's part of Investor Community, but maybe I've put this link, so it could be that they're going to try and join this one. So if it's the wrong link, can you that's why she's joining us. Do you want to, if you have a different link that you're sharing, Amy, can you give it to me and I'll update it on the community, because Chrissy's from Investor, so that's why she's there now. Oh. Hi, Chrissy.
Oh, okay.
I think that's
well, you know what? I'll just mute Chrissy and we'll see, like,
Yeah, if you have the Facebook Live link or something, a different link you want me to share,
Yeah.
Amy. Apologies for that.
Oh, no, Chrissy, I'm so sorry. Yeah. You know what? I will give you my, so it's live on my Facebook page. Yeah, I'm glad that that I did, Facebook Live so that I can send it to Chrissy, and we can get that set up.
Yeah,
But
or if you just paste the link in the chat box, Amy, and I will
yeah,
fix the link in the investor community so people join that way.
yeah,
Okay, so that it doesn't come onto.
oh yeah, no problem. So I'm just sending this to everyone. So it's actually just my Facebook profile, and I can make sure that it is that it's available for everyone to view. Make sure that it's public. All right. Okay. Perfect. All right. So Chrissy, I'm going to do you. All right. Uh,
Okay, save. I've now changed.
Okay, so I'm gonna remove Chrissy then. Okay, perfect. All right, great. Oh, wonderful. I'm so glad we have people who are watching us and who are here with us. And you are so brilliant, really, truly. I mean, yeah. It's really, really brilliant. Okay. Let's make sure. All right, so okay, so you're back. Great. And all right,
Yeah.
so I always ask this question. Oh, and if I didn't say already, thank you so much for joining me on WeConnect today. So I always ask this question when I start the podcast, which is, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling very happy and blessed to be with you here today, Amy, and with your listeners, because it's very important to touch base with our feelings. I think on a daily basis, and to acknowledge our feelings and to put names on our feelings. And so I think what you're doing at MoodConnect is very important, especially now during the pandemic, where we need to we're becoming more aware of our mental health, thank goodness. So I'm just very glad that you exist, and I'm very happy to be here.
Well, and I'm so glad that you exist. The mission that you're on right now is so amazing. I was just kind of giving a little introduction to our listeners before you came on about what you're doing with Global Investor. I wanted to get an understanding about where you came from, where your roots were, originated from before you became a consultant and before you started Global Investor.
Yeah, so if you're wondering where this accent comes from, I'm Irish, okay? So I'm half Irish and I'm half Spanish. And so when I was 21, I actually, when I graduated from college, I came straight to France. I fell in love with France by the time I was 15, and I said I had to live and work in France. And so I started my career very much in sales and marketing. I was working for different companies, selling products and services. And after a couple of years, I got into communication. So I started working in HR branding. So employer branding, HR communications, employer branding. So helping companies know what their voice was to attract and retain talent. And to do that through the press and the media. And in those days, this is in the 2000s, the early 2000s and the end of the 90s. So at that point, it was the beginning really of internet advertising. It was just the beginning of banners on web pages, can you believe? And that employers were like, wow, we could use that to put an ad for a job. So I went from working in communications. I had my first child, and then afterwards I took a bit of a career break. And then when I had my second child, a friend of mine came to me and he said he was starting a startup in the wellness space as well, which was about how to measure employee satisfaction and happiness in the workplace and employee stress. Now, this is way before it became anyway fashionable, if you will. And he came to me, I'd known him from college when he'd come to study in France at the same university as me. And anyway, he said, Anne, will you translate this presentation of my company? And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to become your partner. I'm going to work with you. So I basically joined a startup. My very first experience was as a 21-year-old, actually setting up the French sales office for an Irish company that did pharmaceutical labeling. Now, I didn't know the first thing about labeling, pharmaceutical industry, or setting up a business. But when I was 21, I was literally parachuted into France. And I'll never forget, it really was the startup experience, very daunting, of here's your phone book, here's a fax machine, here's your computer, and the who's who of the pharmaceutical industry in France. Now go and find us clients. Literally, that's what it was. And I had to kind of even find the office, build the furniture, everything. So I was doing a startup before it became fashionable, but with money, because it wasn't my money. That was the big difference, And so I went from that very formative experience of having to build a sales pipeline with a very long sales cycle, at a very young age, and perseverance and putting in the work day in, day out, and not seeing the results for literally about 2 years. And having to sit in monthly meetings where I was the country manager for France, and sitting in the monthly meeting with zero revenue coming in month after month after month. And my boss is wondering, what the hell are you doing over there, Anne? There's nothing coming through. And it was just that the sales cycle in printing, in the pharmaceutical and the packaging industry, was very long. It usually takes about 1.5 years to become a second supplier, if you will, which was what I was aiming to do. So that was the very beginning of my career. And that was my first startup experience. The second one was the one I was telling you about, when my friend created this employee stress analytics firm. And so I helped him to set up the marketing, the actual, just the website, the communications, literally, again, starting from scratch. What are we trying to do? Who are we, etc. And then after that, I kind of took a pause and I said, what do I really want to do? And I said, I absolutely want to become a consultant. I said, I'd always loved giving advice, but more than that, it was, I really like building a relationship with a company, trying to understand their problem, understand it deeply, like research it, understand it, and come up with the right solution that's right for them and for whom they're trying to help. So that was a great, the idea that I wanted to do. And so I basically started by doing informational interviews. I had to transition into that career. So I kind of changed career and jobs every 4 to 5 years, because I was very curious and I wanted to learn. I was actually entrepreneurial in every single job until I became my own boss, because I was constantly building new products, building new markets, winning new business. And it would just come to me. I didn't even have to try. It was like, boom, here's the door opening. So yeah, it's been a kind of a funny roller coaster career. But when I became a consultant, I said, what am I interested in? Okay, it has to do with management and business and leadership and intercultural, something to do with different cultures. What could I do? And so I ended up working for a boutique consulting firm in Paris that did intercultural management, which is basically post-merger integration. Which is what? It's basically when one company buys another or merges another, how do you get the top teams, the leadership teams, to work together and to build a new corporate culture, to understand the two corporate cultures and build a new corporate culture. So this is change management and complex human beings pushed into one. So that's what I started doing, Amy, and then moved on to do different things after that. When I finished doing that, I went into, so I was very successful. I worked there for a couple of years, and soon I was outselling one of the partners, which is a bit embarrassing. And they said, well, we better make you a partner. I said, yes, make me an offer. And then I was headhunted by another firm and they said, we keep hearing your name, and we are looking for our country manager of France it was a leadership and management training firm, a British firm. And they said, your name keeps coming up. Every time we talk to anybody, it has to be you. So I went in, met them, and I was hired. And I basically took over the managing of the French office, and then worked with them for 4 or 5 years, and then set up all their global business development. So I was Miss Tender. I don't know if you say Mrs. or Mrs. Tender. Basically, when you had to apply to a global tender for training or management development, multi-million-dollar deals, basically, I was the one leading that, writing the proposals, pitching. So I've been pitching, and this is where it's going to segue to what we do now. So I was pitching for multi-million-dollar business and winning it for several years. And so I have a really good track record of understanding the corporates, how they work, how long it is to build a relationship. But when you're in there, it's really good. You really, really work closely with them. It takes a while to warm them up. So I'll pause there because me, Amy, when I start, I don't shut up. So I'm going to be quiet.
I mean, I was like, wow, yeah, just keep going and keep going, I notice a lot of that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, that curiosity. I noticed that about you from the very beginning, when we would have these Wednesday meetings, with Global Investor, the community meeting groups, right? And I always really appreciated and loved that about you, because I have a similar kind of spirit. So I would, anytime I would have a new kind of contact, or found out about a new book or a website or something, and you say, Amy, drop a link in there. I put a link in the chat, and then you were always, taking note of that, and I was, I appreciated that so much, that you knew so much already, but that you were always so open to learning more and integrating that into what you do, on a regular kind of basis, and say, oh, okay, let me take that and I'll look at that later and find how I can help this idea or this person or this concept to grow what I'm doing, and see how it fits in this, in this grand scheme of things, and that you bring people together. That's really a wonderful thing. I think that's a big reason probably why so many people would, hear your name, because you are so interested in so many other cultures, ideas, concepts, people,
Yeah.
and yeah.
It's the curiosity. It really is, Amy. You've nailed it. And I think that's a key entrepreneurial trait for all of you entrepreneurs out there and non-entrepreneurs. Those of you who are curious, we got to stay curious, and I'm a lifelong learner. I'm extremely curious. And I mean, thanks to you too, because Amy is very, very creative, as she said, rightly said. And it's true that in the community, in our member chats, we have them every Wednesday. And you've been great at sharing resources. So, for example, I think you were the very first person to mention Clubhouse to me. And I said, what's that? I had never heard of it. And you were telling us about Clubhouse. I was like, oh, I better look into that. And I'm really glad you did. And as you say, sharing the different resources, but also I think really what I love about you as well is that you're very open about, okay, this is some challenges I'm coming across, or this is what like some input, and you also give really good input and feedback to others on those calls. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for creating MoodConnect, because we need it.
Yeah, we're doing testing right now, and also well, we had a prototype And then we did a little bit of testing with that, and we found that we needed to kind of do more streamlining with the whole process of it, the user experience for the app. So we, pulled back and refigured, the prototype, and then, and then just simplified things more. And so we'll be ready to have that released for testing very shortly. It's an ongoing process, right? And
Oh
like,
yeah.
And I feel like the community that you built, with Global Investor, it's so important because it not only has allowed women to have a space to come together all over the world, to share their ideas and their businesses and their experiences, but also the touch point calls that we've had, we are able to relate certain victories and also certain challenges. The challenges
Yes.
that we relate with each other is so important because they're so authentic and real, and that
Yes.
and I just the idea of just holding space for that kind of thing is also another really important aspect for myself and the work that I do, because I feel like when we share certain experiences with each other, then we are able to connect in a more truer way, you know and so that kind of leads me to my next question, which was, you know, was there something like a challenge that you saw, or something that happened in your own life, back in 2013 that really triggered you to want to start Global Investor?
Absolutely. And so basically a couple of things kind of came together. And I think everybody's journey to entrepreneurship is different. First of all, I wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was 17. So I've always known, and I decided in my head I'd be an entrepreneur by the time I was 33, and I would have offices in Paris and London and Madrid and New York. I had this big plan. But life doesn't always go according to that. And so in 2011, I actually lost my brother. My brother passed away in very tragic circumstances. And when you lose a loved one, it makes you really think about life and about your priorities and what's important to you. And so that loss helped me to kind of really put a pause and say, hold on a second. Life is short. We never know when it's our time to go. And I don't want to be in a place where I've said, well, I didn't get to do what I really wanted to do. So I kind of said to myself, I really took time to say, what is it that I want to do? And so I said, it has to be helping women in business, global, and solving a really important problem. But I didn't know what that was going to be, Amy. I still didn't know exactly what problem I wanted to solve, but I knew it had to be serving business women globally. And so the aha moment came for me when I was invited to an event in London by the Cherie Blair Foundation. So Cherie Blair is Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister of the UK. His wife has a she has a foundation that does mentoring for women entrepreneurs around the world. And so there was a guest speaker. I was there to kind of to learn from the event. And from the audience, I asked the woman entrepreneur, I asked her, what was your biggest challenge? And she said it was access to funding. And this light bulb went off to my head. I said, what? Is it harder for women to raise money than men? I started to ask myself the question, but the question wouldn't go away. So it really started to it was a light bulb moment like you see in the cartoons or in the films where they go boom. It really was. So I started to get curious. Talking about curiosity, I started to read the research. I just started looking and said, is it harder for women? I don't know. I started to find the research, and there was one statistic that came out. The IFC, the International Finance Corporation, did a report in 2013 that said, or 2012, 2012, 2013, that said that they estimated the funding gap, meaning the amount of money, the difference between money raised by male and female entrepreneurs, they estimated it to be $300 billion.
Wow.
When I read that statistic, that was it for me. I said, okay, I could not swallow that statistic. I couldn't accept it. It really triggered something deep inside of me. And we're talking about authenticity, which is so important to what you do at MoodConnect, and being true to yourself. My biggest personal values have to do with equality and respect. So when I mean by equality, it means, in particular, I suppose, gender equality. It means equal access to opportunities. That's the definition of gender equality. And sorry, the definition of feminism is also a woman, somebody who believes in women having equal access to opportunities as men. That's what feminism is. And I discovered that I knew my biggest value was A, equality, and B, respect. It's like, for me, it was a lack of respect. It was like, how is this possible? Why should half the population of the world not have the same rights and same access to fund their business as the other half? So that got my blood boiling, literally. So I decided, okay, that's what I want to serve, and that's what I want to help solve. And it's a really big one. Since then, that figure has gotten really worse. I mean, that was 2013. And today in 2021, the funding gap is now estimated to be $1.7 trillion.
Wow.
So we've gone from 300 billion to 1.7 trillion in the space of those 8-9 years, right? And that was before COVID. So this is a big deal. And why is it important is because now we're finally getting research that shows that when investing in women entrepreneurs could add $5 trillion to the global economy, could add 6% to global GDP. So if we gave access to women entrepreneurs, we can actually help grow the pie. It's not about men versus women. So that was my aha moment. It was one statistic that made my blood boil. It just hit a nerve and a part of my value, my inner compass, and I couldn't accept. And that's how it made me decide to do it. I'm not from a finance background. Yeah. I've learned all of this. I've come from knowing nothing about funding, like many of the women entrepreneurs that I serve, that we help. I went from knowing nothing about this stuff to becoming an expert and helping and a thought leader and an advocate in this space in these 8 years, because I care so deeply. It's like it is an injustice in the same way that racism is an injustice that I cannot swallow and I will never tolerate. It just same. And so for me, it's just like, okay, I really have chosen that's the thing I want to work on. And I really want to work on it in some shape or form for the rest of my life. So I'm playing the long game, because I mean, this problem is so much bigger than me. It's not me who's going to solve it. It's together. And it's a question of, okay, how can we mobilize public awareness, care, and resources to help change this problem, and to realize that when we do reduce that funding gap and give more equal access to female founders, we will actually have more innovation. We will have more jobs. We will have a much bigger and sustainable economy, because men and women are different. We look at the world differently, and we see and spot different problems and create different solutions. We're completely complementary. We know this, otherwise the human species wouldn't have lived.
Exactly. And and it's so true that men and women, they are meant to work together in so many different capacities and roles, and not just what we were assigned so many years ago, as being like the men are the breadwinners. Those are the people that are supposed to be, going out and and making the money, bringing in whatever it is, you know, whether it's like we're cavemen or we're living in, you know, like 21st century, right? Like, like it's the same kind of idea. We have to work together in all capacities, really, not just in the ones where people feel traditionally comfortable with, you know, because yes, women
Yes.
bring a different kind of perspective. You know, we are the life givers, right? And, you know, we are the nurturers, and, you know, and that's been the role that we've taken on for so many years. So of course, yes, we are going to, you know, like have a bigger handle on that. But of course, you know, men can be nurturing as well. You know, I mean, there are so many aspects that we share, you know, if we allow
Yes.
ourselves as a society to open ourselves up to accepting that, you know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it all has to do with acceptance, and, you know, and just believing that we can all do this and come together, and, you know, and yeah, and not being so worried about the competition. And so really, I mean, essentially you've been a trailblazer for the whole, you know, oh, now there's this big craze, like, oh, invest in women now, you know, like in so many different
Yeah.
you know, of the world, and people, you know, having a Women's International Month or Women's International Day, you know, as things. You were, you know, very instrumental in getting that kick started 8 years ago. You know, yeah, before it was even popular. And I'm sure that you probably, you know, you had a lot of really wonderful victories in doing that, but then probably also a lot of challenges too, right? And being the person who's like sitting there with your bullhorn, you know, and everybody's like, well, what? You know, but then the more that you see, you have that kind of tenacity, which I love, you know, like that you continued working at this and being so dedicated to this mission for so long, you know, and bringing so many women together and people together to support this mission, you know, of funding women entrepreneurs and women CEOs, you know, and also bringing female investors, because that's another aspect to it too. You know, women
Yes.
believe they can be investors too, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a key part of the problem and the solution, because today women-only founders only get about 2.2% of venture capital worldwide. 2.2%. About 11% goes to mixed teams, so co-founders of male and female, and the rest goes to all male teams. Hello, that's not right. I mean, there's something intrinsically wrong, right, in there. The second point is, to your point, Amy, is on the investor side. Today, we estimate there's probably about between 8 and 12% of venture capitalists are women in the world. 8 and 12%.
Wow.
That's it, 8 to 12. And when it comes to, so venture capitalists, for those of you who are not familiar with the term, are professional investors who create funds, who will raise a big pot of money, if you will, which they call a fund. And they have people who invest in that fund, and they have to choose the companies that they're going to invest in over 10 years. And they need to give a big return on investment at the end of the 10 years to the people who put money into the fund, right? That's a venture capitalist is a professional investor. And so there are very few, there's only 8 to 12%. It's still an all men's club, but it's getting better, Amy, to your point that, like I've been talking about this for many, many years. When I started Global Investor in 2013, I put on a Google alert for funding female founders, funding women entrepreneurs, just to see what would happen. I would get maybe 1 or 2 articles a month on the topic. Today, it's 3 or 4 articles a day.
Wow.
That just shows you how it's changed. Of course, not thanks to me. I'm part of the system, but it's now we have evolved as a society where we're talking much more about this and realizing, okay, this is an issue. So, and we do need more women investors. And it's so important to realize that we can all be an investor. And I'm sure you're going to ask me about this and I'll come back to it, but I want to make sure we catch your all of your questions. It is important to say that, yes, having more women investors is key part of this, because so the venture capitalists is one small part of the funding, right? A big important chunk. They're the most of the money, but there are very few companies actually get venture capital. So then we're looking at the other kind of funders. Who are they? They are business angels who are private citizens like you and me, who have disposable income that they can afford to lose, basically, that they can afford to invest in a company. So it's someone who invests their private money into a company for about 3 to 5 years with the hope of getting some dividends and to get in return. But usually that angel investor, that's where you say they're your guardian angel. They're there by your side. So they don't only give you money, they give you advice, they give you access to networks and so on. And they tend to be more hands-on than venture capitalists, who are also there to give you the resources and the advice and find more investors, etc. But it's a different type of investor, venture capitalist. So yeah, we need more business angels. And again, there's only about 20% of business angels in the US are women. 20%. So we're still so much,
I know.
and I see that as an opportunity. I say, look, we can grow. It's fantastic. It's not like, oh my God, we have to cry over these figures. You could, but I'm an optimist.
Oh yes, I mean, you have to start from somewhere, right? So one thing I want to ask you is, so what have been, some of your key achievements and challenges throughout the past 8 years in growing your network at Global Investor?
So let me start with the challenges, because I think it's always good to start there. I think one of them is being a solo founder is hard. You know yourself, Amy. It's really hard because you have to make all the decisions yourself. And it's much easier if you can share that with somebody. I know that when I started off, there's such a thing as decision fatigue. You're making so many decisions at the beginning of your company every single day, millions of decisions on your product, on your service, on your market, on your finance, on whatever. I remember my husband saying, what are we having for dinner? And I nearly blew the face off him. I can't make another decision. I can't answer that. My head can't cope with another decision. So I think that was one of the challenges. It's certainly being a solo founder is lonely. And therefore, it would be nice to share the load. And I think ideally, hopefully one day in the future, I'll have a co-founder, but I'm fine at the moment and building my team. So that was one challenge. And another challenge, I think, is the tech challenge. Amy, you mentioned it. I'm a non-tech founder, so I've built a platform that is tech enabled, meaning that we use the tech to get our services out to the world. But in the beginning, I made mistakes. I didn't choose the right technical partners, and therefore it meant that I spent money and lost the money because I had to rebuild the product again on another platform. And that happened to me twice. So it wasn't once, but twice. So it was hard. And so that was definitely a challenge. And I think the third one, which is a challenge and a blessing, I suppose, is that, you definitely need to be tenacious. You have to keep going. And of course, like everybody, I have my down days. Like everybody, it's a real roller coaster. And it's always connecting with your why. I actually even have it on a post-it here. So for those who are watching Facebook Live, they'll see it there. Connect to your why. It's
Yes.
Connect to my why. Always, because it's on those days when it's particularly tough, why am I doing this? Because I want to leave a better world than the one I've come in, and I want to leave a better world for women and girls, and for my daughter to have more. Today, if my son and my daughter both set up a company and went looking for funding, my son would be 70% more likely to get funded just because of his gender. He doesn't even have to be good. He's great. That's nothing to do with it. But he wouldn't even have to be good. He's a white man. So my daughter has to work so much harder, and that I can't deal with that.
Yeah.
Inequality, the sex are, and if you're a founder of color, forget, I don't want to say forget it, but it's so much harder. You know, founders of color get less than 1%, less than 1% of venture capital, and less than 1% of the fund. It's ridiculous. And founders of color and women of color are the majority of the bloody entrepreneurs on this planet. So
It's so
something's got to
true.
give. And so
It's so true, you know, and really a lot of us, we have to find our own way, get creative, you know, and find our own way. I mean, so many women I talk to, they bootstrap. I'm bootstrapped, right? You know, like, and so we get creative, we get, you know, like really resourceful, and, you know, and pull together resources and networks, and, you know, and at times wear ourselves out, right? You know, I mean, it's but but really, like, I feel like, yes, you know, to what you're saying, um the difference, though, I believe, is that a lot of women and people of color, you know, women of color also, you know, like, investors should really want to invest in those kind of entrepreneurs more. And I'll tell you why.
yeah,
Because the fact that they are getting into this kind of work when the cards are so stacked against us means that are we are determined to succeed so much more than,
yes,
you know, than white men, really.
exactly.
We are
Exactly.
determined to succeed. So you're putting in these millions of dollars, you know, and if it's like some, you know, some white male or something, you know, he can be like, you know, I could just sit right back and, like, I don't really have to try as hard. You know, I can make
Yes.
a whole bunch of mistakes. And, you know, I mean,
And
and
that's
you know what?
wrong.
Make
It's so
make
wrong, right? So yeah.
make-
So I mean, but those have been some of my challenges. It's been around, like, you know, being non-tech solo founder, bootstrapping as well, and, you know, overworking. Um, and I think the other challenge I have is that I'm very creative, as we've said earlier on, which means I tend to start creating millions of different things and getting very excited, and then saying, "And stop, put that down, come back and play with it later. Bill, continue this part first, and then you can go back to it." And I literally have to force myself to do that because I keep having all these ideas and more and more and more I want to do. And then
it's
to
so
the other
important.
part,
Yeah. Go on,
it's
sorry.
so important. But no, it's an important tool, and I just like to say that it is an important tool. Like, it's great to be creative, but you have to channel it. Okay. And you do need
Focus.
to kind of, I would just park it. I have a parking lot. I have literally on my board over there, I have some of my achievements from last year. Each little goal or thing that goes gets on there. And then over here, I have my thing. And I'm just only trying to put the things I'm working on. Otherwise, I'd put everything everywhere. I'm like, no, just. So that's one thing. But I think on the highlights on this journey so far is, one of them definitely has to be my TEDx talk. I did a TEDx talk in 2015 and I loved it. It was it's a real experience because I love public speaking, and I'm lucky, I'm good at it. Okay. I'm good at sharing a message, and I'm passionate, and that comes across, and it's a talent, a gift that I'm grateful for, but I work on, and that I'm constantly improving, you know, because I'm motivated to get the message out to make change. So that it just kind of happens. And the thing with the TEDx talk or with a TED talk is that it takes a lot of work. It's very, like with many things, it's very difficult to make a complex problem or topic simple and accessible. And for me in particular, to do it in a short period of time, you know, so my TED talk is like 15 minutes, which normally the organizer said we like them between 8 and 15, but Anne, we know you have a lot to say, you can have the 15. But to get to 15, my God, you've no idea the work it took me to keep on refining. And that was a good exercise in itself, for me. And it was just great to be able to work on, you know, bringing an idea. At that time, it was really about it's sharing, raising awareness about the challenges women entrepreneurs have raising money and what we can all do to change that. So that was in essence, what my TED Talk is about. Yeah. But it was a great experience because it was like 6 months of prep. Like, you don't see all the work behind the scenes that goes into those few minutes. Woo! You know, the hardest, it's a blessing and a challenge, Amy, because the hardest thing for me with the TED Talk, it's never the talking and the speaking and the public speaking. I love that. It was having to learn it off by heart, because for TED, you gotta know it. You can't wing it. And I am a person who likes to, when I do any other public speaking, I know exactly what I'm going to say, but I don't practice it. I literally do my slides, get up and then do it. I do my stuff. It comes out of me. I'm lucky. It is a gift. It's a gift. I'm good at it and I love it. It comes out of me, but I really don't have to prepare. And that's not true. I prepare what I'm going to say, how I'm going to deliver it. There's a lot of work, but I enjoy the moment. But the TED Talk was a bit different. So that was a big plus. But the other one would be, I would say, I was very blessed last year for the last 3 years, I've been part of the Simone Weil Prize, which is a prize given by the French government in remembrance of Simone Weil, who was a French minister, the first president of the European Commission, and who brought in the right for abortion in France in 1973. She was a human rights and a gender equality activist all her life. She was a survivor of the Shoah. I mean, an incredible woman who went from, you know, to become a minister, a health minister, different minister, to be part of the European Parliament and the Commission, and to enact change on a global basis. And so the French government created a prize for gender equality in her name. That's the person you see her there. That's her, that's Simone. And I was very honored to be part of the jury for the last 3 years. From the beginning, they started that out. And last year, in March, I was president of the jury for the first 2 years. And so I got to go to a private lunch with President Macron, with Fumzile from UN Women and other key leaders, and to sit at the table and have lunch for 2.5 hours with the president of France, a leader of the G7 country, and tell him exactly, Mr. President, this is what you should do to help funding for women entrepreneurs, not only in France, but not only the G7, but on the G20. And he was like, taking notes. And they had me sitting directly opposite him.
A lot of people.
That is up there.
A lot of people would probably just like, enjoy a really lovely lunch and be like, like, oh my God, I'm so scared. I don't know what to say, but not Anne, not Anne. She's like,
oh, well, okay, they do prepare you. Well, to be honest, Amy, no, I mean, honestly, the ministers and the people who are there, they kind of said to me, Anne, when you come, we want you to come with suggestions to him for France and for bigger on women's economic empowerment. But that's all they say. It's literally a sentence. Go do that. I'm like, okay. And so I came in the next day and I had my meeting and we were all there, and it was an incredible opportunity to be with other incredible leaders in this space. But it was an honor. It was just an incredible honor. And I want that again. I want to be at the table with world leaders to make the change, because this has to happen at a global level. So I'm lucky. I'm part of a working group for the W20, which is the working group on gender equality that feeds into policies for the G20. So I'm still in the background working with other incredible women activists on the women's economic empowerment. So, we have to do it. And it's like, once you get the bug, you can't shut me up anyway, and you wouldn't want to.
Well, I mean, we're going to have to, I think that I'm going to have to schedule like a longer time on WeConnect podcasts with you, because I'll tell you what, there's so many more questions I want to ask you.
Oh, please let me be quiet and help you go.
But you know what, like, if we don't get to everything, because actually I'm thinking of more questions I want to ask you on top of the questions that I already had planned out. So definitely we are going to have you back again on WeConnect for sure. But one thing, I really was curious about when I was doing a lot of research on you, and I did see your TEDx actually, and watched a lot of the videos and things that you had already previously done. And one thing I really wanted to know was, who are some of your mentors that are
Mm.
still work with you now and have worked with you in the past?
That's such a great question. So I think I would say one mentor who's not here and who's dead a long time, and she's just more of a symbol and a a person that I admired since I was a child was Joan of Arc. And I mentioned her in my TED talk because she, for me, was the first women leader that I'd ever seen in the history books. As an 8-year-old reading a story about this 17-year-old woman who raised an army and kicked the British out of France. And I was like, how do you do that in medieval France? Like when women were literally next to nothing. So I was very inspired by Joan and her leadership, and I think the thing that I was very inspired by was her tenacity, that she died for what she believed in, literally. So she's been a kind of a symbol for me all my life since I was a child. My mentors, I think now, they come in different shapes and sizes. I've had different. I've had one executive coach that I've had for 10 years, and she's been an incredible mentor because she's helped me to learn different skills as to how to navigate different situations. So and her name is Mira Ralhan Madana. So Mira Ralhan Madana, she's an executive coach and she's a senior executive in HR across the world. But she was really instrumental for helping me to channel myself, because I have all these ideas and so much I want to do that sometimes I get overwhelmed by myself because I'm impatient and I want to make change happen. So she's been instrumental. I think for me, honestly, some of the greatest mentors for me are the women entrepreneurs. It's you guys. That's why I do this. I learn from you every single day. And I've had different advisors. I really appreciate Shelley Porges. Shelley, who is the founder of the Beyond the Billion movement and company. So she's helped mobilize $1 billion, more than $1 billion of funds, getting funds to say we're committing to invest in female founders. She's incredible. So Shelley Porges is definitely one of my mentors, and that I've always kind of really valued her advice. And I have a very close friend of mine, Moira Appiu, who's now she's an executive coach and a trainer working with MBA students across the world. But we've been very close for many years, and Moira has been a great mentor to me, certainly in the past, helping me think about stuff. Particularly in those transition years when I was a mom and I want to get back into business and I was still working on how to network. Moira is an incredible networking queen. I learned how to network thanks to her. So I take hats off to Moira Appiu. They're not necessarily famous people. You won't know them, but I think they're all important mentors. And I think for me, one of my most important mentors has been my own mother, and not so much mentor, but maybe a guide, because she's somebody I look up to. She was always very entrepreneurial, has set up several mini businesses from home while managing a family of 6 children, incredible. And so I learned a lot from her, a lot about her resilience and creativity and having to bootstrap when you've got 6 kids, in a difficult time. So yeah, they would all be my mentors. And who do I look up to today? I look to the female activists. I look at Malala. I look at Greta Thunberg, the young women who are outstanding. Kamala,
I know.
Kamala Harris. I love Arlen Hamilton, who's an incredible VC, Black lesbian who has set up an incredible fund to fund Black and people of color and diverse people who wouldn't normally get access to capital, and she's just done it and she keeps doing it. And of course, good old Michelle. These people are not just books I put up for the sake of it. And I have Hillary as well. Whether you like her or not for political things, it doesn't matter. As a person, like as a woman who has really fought for her ideals, she's again a person I would look up to, but she's not a mentor. I don't know her personally yet. I'd love to meet her at one point. But all of these women and many of my close friends, you know, I have a circle of close friends, and some of them whom I'm very lucky. We talk twice a week, like week in, week out, and we help each other, so like we do on the investor community. You gotta have your sisters. You gotta have your sisters to keep you going through things, you know?
Yes. And you know, I so often, so many times, and I want to quickly say this, when I make time to go to connect with everyone on those Wednesday calls, I learn something. I feel better about the work that I'm doing. You know, even if I'm going through a challenging time, I feel like I've connected with someone and learned, you know, something that I didn't already know about, you know, and it feels good to connect with, your sisters, right? And, you know, I feel like it is so important to, you know, to identify who inspires us, you know, to create that lineage, you know, for ourselves of, you know, of women or people, human beings in general, who have brought us to the place that we are right now, because it reminds us that we're not alone in our journey and what the work we're doing, you know?
Yes.
You know, just like you said with Hillary, whether you like, you know, a human being, a person or not, you cannot deny the impact that they make in this world, you know, like, because I mean, how many first ladies can you say went on to, like, you know, excel in that kind of area in that way, you know? And you have to also ask yourself, well, why are certain women, you know, maybe not loved as much, you know, in society? Perhaps part of it could be because, you know, because they're doing things that society says, you know, you can't do that, you're a woman, you know? And I mean, you kind of have to like go into like to step into that world of men. It does take a certain amount of courage, like we're talking about resilience and tenacity, you know, to say, like, you know, you say that this is a role only for men. Secretary of State say this is a role for only for men. I will say no, it's not, right?
Yeah.
And so
and actually I'm glad you mentioned Secretary of State, because the other incredible role model that I'd be remiss in saying is Madeleine Albright. Because Madeleine Albright is an incredible role model. She started her political career, or not political career, but her service of the US government when she was 55. So, you know, there's a lot of time. Sometimes people say, oh, we've got to start really early and so on and so forth. And we women have a different path, you know, and she was called on by Bill Clinton to really to help him. And she was the first woman Secretary of State. And then we had Condoleezza Rice. Again, we may not agree with the politics, but you've got to admire her as an African-American woman at the top. Bloody brilliant. God on you, you know, and on the world stage. You know, Christine Lagarde, same for France, and who was the finance minister of France, and the IMF, and you know, she's just incredible, right? So lots of women to look out for, but I really think we also need to look at our closer circle, because we can't always have those people close to us, of course. But that's why I'm saying I've got my sisters, and I'm glad you say that I really feel it in Invest Her community. We are funding Tribe. We are funding Sisters. We are there. And it is a safe space to talk and to be yourself. And that's why we take off the mask, because it's only when you are vulnerable. Let's talk about Brene Brown. And I know that you'll bring this up as well with MoodConnect. You know, it's when you're vulnerable and say, okay, I'm really struggling with this. And then everybody will say, oh, okay, me too. Me too. You know, even we had a call last week and somebody was struggling with something and we were all like, me too. Me too. And I'm not going to put a smiley face on it today, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. I, I also like, I'd like to know, how has your experience been since, in doing global investor around the pandemic and COVID? Like, how has that affected you on a personal level and also with the business that you've done?
Yeah. So I think on a personal level, like many people, I'm finding it very difficult. I'm a big extrovert. If you haven't guessed by now, you know by listening to this podcast, I'm an extrovert. So I get my energy. That's what extroverts get their energy from, being with other people and exchanging ideas with other people. Introverts get their energy from being alone, right? It's two different types of personality type. And I'm an extrovert and I really miss going to the conferences, networking with other women, getting those ideas. I'm thirsty because those going to conferences and speaking at conferences, whether it's in tech or funding or whatever, or investment, that sisterhood of connecting to other people that I can learn from, I really miss that. I'm tired of being behind Zoom. I wish I could meet you all physically. And it's tiring, being just in your home office all the time. And I just have we're in lockdown still in France. When we go outside, we have to wear a mask. We have to wear a mask indoors. The schools are shut. Everything is closed except for just supermarkets and pharmacies and petrol stations. And that's it. So it's tough. So I have to work from here it's just frustrating. Let's just say I'm very blessed. We're in lucky to be in the 1% of the world that we have the tools and the resources to be able to even speak today. Okay. So I know I'm very grateful. Know that I have a roof over my head and I'm not wanting for that. And that, yes, it's not easy financially. Of course it isn't. We're all really hit by that too. So for me, it's the missing the networking and meeting and learning from others through physical content. Of course, missing my friends and family. I haven't physically seen my mother since 2019 because she's in Ireland, and France is on the red list where I would have to go pay 2,000 euros, quarantine in a hotel for 2 weeks just to be able to see her, and then do the same thing coming back. And no. So yeah, and not just her, my brothers and sisters and so on. So yeah, I think like all of us, it's, my father is very ill at the moment, and having loved ones who are ill, we're all being touched by COVID in some shape or form. And I think it's tough. I think mentally it's tiring on all of us. We just get fed up, of being in this gloomy pandemic, but then that's where we have to have the resilience and say, okay, keep going. So it's been tough, Amy. I wouldn't say it's all easy, but having out of that, what the impact on my business, well, it's helped me focus because I'm no longer flying off left, right, and center. I've built the investor directory. I've built more on the community. I'm building more and more things and building partnerships with corporates and more coming. So it's helped me focus. And it's helped me focus in a way, like when I created Invest Her directory, it's like the first global directory for women founded or co-founded businesses. Okay. And the objective is, when you apply and you get on that directory, is you can be seen by both consumers and potential investors. Because I want to put the spotlight on women. I said, how can we help all those women businesses around the world who need customers? Because that's how we need to stay alive. We need a paying customer. So we've created that directory, and we're continuing to build it out. Like, we're currently at 670 companies from 50 countries and 75 sectors, and that's going to explode in the next couple of months because we're working on partnerships that's going to explode. And then we're building the same thing for the investors. So it's like building a list of all the investors who are serious about investing in women entrepreneurs. And I bet you can't wait to see that list. So we're working on that.
Oh
So that's
gosh,
going to come out very soon.
And, you know, and I feel like you are really, you're on a trajectory of, you know, like really exceeding your goal by 2030, you know, of 1
I
million.
hope so.
I mean, it looks like you are really, you know, I mean, from what you just shared, you know, like more than halfway there, right? Like, you know, of all these
Well, I mean,
directories.
there's
Well,
a
I
lot of
mean,
initiatives. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
no, I mean, well, I guess, you know, of women that are female founded or co-founded businesses that are enrolled in Global Investor. I don't know if they've been you know, if they have gotten the investment that they, you know, the funding that they needed, but they're getting closer to it through working
Yes.
in your network, you know, and that's wonderful, you know. And so you know, I mean, I just, you know, like I'm so grateful for this community of women like yourself and so many other women who are just, yeah, trailblazers and innovators who say, you know, I will not rest until this gets better, you know, and are so dedicated to that kind of mission. Um, and you know, do you have anything more that you want to share, like any events that are coming up that we should all keep a lookout for, or any workshops that, you know,
Yes.
can bring, you know, inspire more people, more women, and more co-founded businesses to become a part of Global Investor?
Thank you for that opportunity, Amy. Yes, we will be doing, we have a podcast coming up in a couple of weeks with Cara Golden, who is the founder of Hint Water in the US, if you know Hint Water. So she's got a fabulous book. She's an incredible woman. And so she wrote a book called Undaunted. So she talks about how she built her business and was undaunted. And as part of her journey, she raised $73 million. So pretty incredible woman. And I asked her, I said, Cara, I want you on my podcast. And she said, sure. And I said, you could absolutely talk about your book because your book is awesome. I bought it and I read it in a day. Okay, so I would only get good people on, and she's awesome. So I'd really highly recommend it. Her book, Cara Golden, Undaunted. If you want to read the story of a woman entrepreneur who's put her house on the line multiple times for her business, but come out on the other side and just never given up and always pivoting. And like you were saying earlier, she's fabulous. So we have a podcast coming up. Check out Invest Her Community. So if you go to our website, globalinvesther.com, you will click at the top, you see community. You'll learn more about what you've been hearing from Amy. And, you know, we've made it so you can join monthly. So join for a couple of months, see what it's like. It's the equivalent of 6 cups of coffee a month, ladies. Come on. You can afford 6 cups of coffee. You didn't have them in Starbucks. Invest in yourself, in your sisterhood.
Yeah.
And it really, you know, we basically we provide you, as Amy said, we have our weekly member chats. We also have our member talks, which is new, which is it's like TED Talks by members for members, where our members get to share their expertise or learnings with the rest of the community, which is awesome. But also we've many other bits coming through. So check out the Investor Community. If you want to learn about funding, it's a great place because we share lots of pitch events, don't we, Amy? We shared your event here. So we share events, resources, sources of funding, everything to do with funding from a female founder focus from anywhere in the world. You know, we put that kind of information on. I would encourage you to apply to the directory. So when you go to globalinvesther.com, you'll see, click on directory at the top or go to founder, whichever it'll bring you, and you scroll and you'll see apply, because especially if you're currently raising, for those, when you apply, you can fill in all the stuff. If you already meet our criteria of being a business that we think is already in business, has a product or service that's actually working and selling, you can, you know, we'll put you on the directory so others will find you. But most importantly, if you're raising funding, you can put your pitch deck in your executive summary, because we are going to be doing special investor pitch events with our investors. So that's coming in the next couple of months. I'm literally working on the partnerships to make that happen. Okay. So
That
if
would
you
be
are raising
amazing.
money, do it. Check it out. Okay. So join the community. It's a minimum of, it's an investment, but it's an investment in yourself. And as a business owner, you can deduct it from your taxes. So bloody well do it. It's good for you. But then I would say, check out the directory. We have the podcast and much more to come. But really, it's just come and be part of a sisterhood. You know, we want you to succeed. If you're a woman entrepreneur and you don't know anything about funding, we'll have many more resources, but I don't want to overwhelm you. Just check out the community to begin with and check out the directory. And we'd love to see you in either or both.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, you know, Jane Applegath, who is now an advisor for MoodConnect, I met her through Global Investor, and she, you know, she actually, when I first met with her, she introduced me to the idea of, you know, the why, like, why are you doing this, you know, and why is it so great? And the reason for it was because she wanted to get me to feel really positive and excited and, you know, great, like, and really confident about the work that I was doing, you know, but she knew that I knew why I was doing it, but she wanted me to like really get into being excited about MoodConnect, about bringing people together, about people connecting with their own feelings and connecting with each other and being able to, you know, have these kind of authentic conversations, you know, and so once I got to that why, then I was able to get even deeper into more questions, you know, like what do you want this to do? You know, where do you want this to go? You know, asking the more even more and more deeper and exciting questions. And, you know, and thank you so much for answering all these questions I had for you today. And I mean, you know, it's been an amazing journey thus far. And, you know, before I let you go, I want to ask one last question, which is, you know, is there anyone who you would recommend that we have on WeConnect? I know I didn't prepare you for that kind of question, but you know, but it's something that you know, just kind of struck me. Is there someone that you think would be a really good person, you know, of any kind, in or out of entrepreneur world, you know, who we would really benefit from hearing from?
I think there's a couple of members from the investor community that I think of immediately. I know that Dr. Susan Taffer is full of wisdom, and she's also very spiritual. So I think she has a wealth of experience on women's leadership and education. And I think she'd be very much into as well helping people get in touch with their feelings. So I think she'd be an excellent guest. And I always kind of joke with her, oh, that's a Susanism, because she comes out with the most incredible sentences. They're little nuggets of wisdom. So I would really suggest that you hear from Dr. Susan Taffer. I do think also that Amaka from our community is also, she's an incredible woman entrepreneur, and she also has her foundation. So she's wearing two hats. She's working in plus size clothing, making beautiful plus size clothing made by material and by women entrepreneurs in Nigeria for the American market. And she's got beautiful clothes. She's a beautiful person in herself. And her foundation is all about helping with education with people with special needs and with disability, living with disability. And she does a lot of work and advocacy on that, again, in Nigeria. But she's awesome because she can also bring you the perspective of like, yeah, how do you look after yourself when you're managing a business, but also when you're managing a nonprofit at the same time? And, you know, she's got lots of personal challenges that she's incredible at handling. So I would just say those would be two people that come to mind. Chrissy as well, who was listening in earlier, Chrissy Boaki, another one of our members, incredible when it comes to innovation. Like, she really knows her stuff, and she's working on a tech startup for the digital medical certificate. And Chrissy, don't kill me if I've got it wrong, but I think that's right. Digital medical certificate, so that when you go traveling and if you get sick abroad, your medical data can be sent safely and properly to whoever the health provider is in that country. And it avoids you then not being looked after properly in that country and then going back and having extra fees because they didn't have all your medical background and so on. So check out Chrissy as well. So they'd be easy peasy 3 that come to mind. Jessica Mendoza, another one of our members, she's got her great startup, which is it's all about when you move house, how do you change your address? You know that we have to change your postal address to all the different people.
I remember her talking about that. But you know what, I think I will get in touch with a few of these women. Thank you so much, Anne.
There you go. They're just some off the top of my head.
You're brilliant. Thank you so much. And you know what, we definitely will have to have you come back again, because there's so much more that I want to, talk with you about and learn, from you about. And I wish we had more time, but thank you again. And you are a treasure in this world, really, so much. I mean, just like, so many of the people that we get to have on WeConnect, you bring a beautiful energy, like, that's so true, that is so heartfelt. And, and while it is really important to be, like have a optimistic outlook in the world, it is important to see people for who they really are and allow people to be who they need to be and feel how they need to feel in each moment in time. And, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that, you've brought your experiences to us, and shared so much of your own wisdom and your own experience in this space today. And thank you again for doing that. And I look forward to being a part of your community network meetings, like the group calls that we have again on Wednesday, and seeing that interview with you and the CEO and founder of Hint, and just, yes, women and investors and men too, go to globalinvestor.com, and and women founders and co-founders, click on that apply, click on that community, and become a part of something that's growing, that is so dynamic and so great. Thank you again. And this is Amy Uzunia from WeConnect, signing off here with you guys today. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.